There are some days I remember all too clearly, even though I tried to forget them. Not because they were loud, not because they were dramatic, but because something inside me just quietly gave up. Maybe it was the rejection email, sent after weeks of waiting and hoping. Maybe it was a short, final message from someone who once promised forever. Maybe it wasn't even words, just silence, where something warm used to be. I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of anyone. I just shut the lights, pulled the blanket over my head like armor, and opened the food delivery app. I ordered more than I needed. Not because I was hungry, but because the food came when nothing else did. And when it arrived, I ate it all in the dark. Not for the taste, not for joy, just to feel like something was filling the space that had started to disappear inside me. That night, I wasn't eating to live. I was eating not to fall apart. And maybe you've had nights like that, too. No one ever really teaches us how to be sad. We grow up learning how to smile, how to impress, how to keep moving forward. We're told to stay positive, to stay busy, to stay strong. But what about when none of that works? What about the nights when all your efforts lead to silence, no replies, no second chances, no explanations? What about when something falls apart inside you and you don't know how to pick it back up again? In those moments, we don't always want to talk. We don't want advice or optimism or someone telling us to cheer up. We just want a break, a pause, a soft place to fall. And more often than not, that place ends up being food. Because food shows up. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't leave. It arrives at your door, warm and waiting. A small, dependable comfort when everything else feels too far away. We reach for it not to satisfy hunger, but to feel some tiny sense of control. What we eat, how much, how fast. Those choices feel grounding when life feels like it's spinning out of reach. But it's more than that. It's the silence we're feeding, the ache we're trying to muffle, the storm inside we're trying to calm with sugar, salt, and something to chew on so we don't have to think. You eat, but you don't taste. You scroll, but you don't see. You fill your body while something deeper continues to empty itself quietly. And then comes the guilt, the shame, the quiet voice that says, "Why am I like this? Why can't I handle life better?" But here's what I've learned. You're not weak. You're human. What you're doing isn't failure. It's survival. It's the most instinctive thing in the world to find something soft when life feels unbearably sharp. Still, survival isn't the same as healing. Food may hold you through the night, but it cannot speak the words you need to hear. It cannot make the pain disappear. It can only sit with you in the dark. Quiet and temporary, and sometimes that's okay. But sometimes you might start to wonder, what am I truly hungry for? Do you remember that feeling? The lights still off, the room still quiet. A takeout box on the bed, empty. Your stomach is full, maybe too full, but the silence inside you is louder than ever. You start to hear it again, that voice. Why did I eat all of that? Why am I like this? Why can't I stop doing this to myself? And just like that, the thing that comforted you for a moment now becomes the thing that makes you feel worse. That's the trap. We eat to feel okay, but we're left feeling guilty, disconnected, and even more alone. We don't eat to destroy ourselves. We eat because it's the only thing that shows up, the only thing that doesn't ask us to explain our sadness. For 5 minutes, it feels like safety. For 5 more, it feels like punishment. And then we do it again. Because we're not trying to be dramatic. We're just trying to cope with something too heavy, too tangled, too quiet to name. Food becomes our way of saying, I don't know how to fix this, but I'm trying to feel something, anything. And the world rarely sees that. It doesn't see the strength it takes to keep waking up, to keep showing up, to keep holding everything together. when no one else knows how close you are to falling apart. But here's the contradiction. The comfort that saves us for a moment often becomes the weight we carry afterward, not just in our bodies, but in our hearts. Because we start believing that every time we feel pain, we have to numb it, that every sadness must be silenced, that every moment of stillness must be filled. And over time, we forget how to sit with ourselves without reaching for something to make it stop. We forget that sadness doesn't need to be erased. It just needs to be felt. And food, as loyal as it may be, was never meant to carry the burden of our entire emotional world. So next time you reach for it, pause, not to punish yourself, but just to ask, with kindness, not judgment, am I feeding my body or am I trying to fill something else? For a long time, I thought something was wrong with me. Why did I always turn to food when things fell apart? Why couldn't I just sit with my feelings, breathe through them, handle them like normal people do? But slowly, I started learning something that changed everything. My body wasn't sabotaging me. It was trying to protect me. When we feel emotional pain, stress, sadness, heartbreak, our brains release a hormone called cortisol. It's the same one that tells the body, "You're in danger, be ready." Our heart beats faster, our muscles tighten, our breathing shortens, and our brain starts scanning for something, anything, to help us feel safe again. That's where food comes in, especially sugary, fatty, comforting foods. They trigger the release of dopamine, the brain's feel-good chemical. Even just the smell, the anticipation, the first bite can soothe our nervous system, like a warm hand placed gently on the chest. And here's something even more surprising. Inside our gut, we have what scientists call the second brain. It's a vast network of nerves that communicates constantly with our actual brain. That's why we feel butterflies when we're nervous, why heartbreak can cause stomach pain, and why food can feel like an emotional rescue, not just physical nourishment. When we eat during sadness, we're not being irrational. We're responding to very real, very primal signals. Our body is saying, "You are hurting. Let me help." But the world doesn't always explain it that way. It calls us emotional eaters. It makes us feel broken, indulgent, weak. And so we carry the pain, then the food, then the shame, layer after layer. But what if instead we paused for a moment, not to blame ourselves, but to thank our bodies for trying? Yes, maybe food isn't the deepest solution. Maybe it can't fix what's missing, but it shows us something important. There's a part of us that still wants to feel better, a part that hasn't given up, a part that's trying, desperately, clumsily, lovingly, to hold us through the storm. So next time your hand reaches for something sweet after a long, heavy day, take a breath, place your other hand gently on your chest, and say, "Thank you, body. I see what you're trying to do, and I'm listening now." Tonight, if sadness finds you again, not loud, not sharp, but soft and heavy like a quiet fog, and you reach for your phone to order food, don't rush to blame yourself. You're not failing. You're just trying to stay afloat. And sometimes, survival looks like comfort food at midnight. Sometimes, healing begins with something warm when everything else feels cold. But before you press place order, just pause for 3 gentle seconds and ask yourself, am I hungry or am I needing to be held? Maybe you'll still order the food, and that's okay. But the moment you ask, you've already started coming home to yourself. Because what we really hunger for can't always be wrapped in paper bags. Sometimes it's a hug. Sometimes it's someone who doesn't ask us to smile. Sometimes it's just the freedom to say, "I'm not okay today," and know that this doesn't make us weak. We live in a world that teaches us to bounce back fast, to move on, to stay productive. But no one really teaches us how to grieve gently, how to sit beside our sadness without needing to numb it right away. But healing doesn't rush. It moves slow. It moves soft. It moves through us, only when we stop trying to hide from it. So maybe the question isn't, how do I stop eating when I'm sad? Maybe the question is, can I start listening to my sadness before I try to silence it? Because change doesn't begin with cutting out late-night meals. It begins when we stop punishing ourselves for trying to feel safe. It begins when we understand that the part of us reaching for food is the same part that still believes we deserve comfort. And maybe one day, you'll eat not to forget, but to stay present, to stay kind, to stay with yourself in a moment that's hard, without needing to disappear from it. I'm still learning how to do that, still learning how to pause before the pattern, how to ask gentle questions instead of giving harsh answers. And you can too. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to change everything overnight. Just start here with one soft question. What am I really hungry for?